After almost 17 years, Riot officially announced League Classic. A return to the golden age. No overloaded champions, no mythic items, heart of gold, race instead of raptors, just pure old school League. Right now, all we have is a confirmation. Riot is doing it. But they haven't told us how. They have leaks about the files entering the PBE, but these are kind of unreliable and inconsistent. Are we going back to Season 1? The chaotic peak of Season 3? We don't know the exact patch yet. Will there be changing content? A completely new timeline? Nobody knows yet. But while everyone is busy daydreaming about the old map and begging for Season 3 to return, let's take a look at the actual gameplay we are asking for. We talk about the golden age of League like it was the best time to play ever. But if we separate our emotions from the factual state of the game, it's a different story. Remember full APE?
Out on the edge of the fight. One more Alpha Strike. He can get another triple here. That is one.
Oh, the Master Yi, Penta.
That's the triple. That's the Quadra. And the chase. Pentakill! Pentakill!
Yeah, not exactly the most fun thing to play against. If he had a reset angle in a teamfight, it would be basically an insta-wipe. And if he didn't somehow one-shot you with his first Q, he would just stand there and meditate, tanking all the damage you could ever do. Now here's the thing, this was really fun to play as, but an absolute horror to play against. Therefore, it got rightfully removed from the game. How about old AP Sion? He would just walk up to you, point and click stun you for 2 seconds, and pop his big ass shield to kill you before you could do anything. Or how about Kassadin? Everybody knows about 99% banrate Kassadin. He had the longest blink in the game on a 5-second cooldown, and a point and click silence on his Q. Meaning, if he jumped on you, you literally couldn't press a button while he killed you. There was zero counterplay, it was a completely disgusting champion design. There are about 150 more examples of these builds, which I cannot all name because the video would be way too long. The point is, it was actually a really poorly designed game back then. So why would we remember these super broken metas as fun? I think there are 3 main reasons. For once, because they were fun to play. Yes, if you were Kassadin, you were having fun. If you played APE and got a Penta, it was fun. But if you were on the receiving end, it was not fun. We only remember the dopamine of playing as the broken champion, and we completely forget how miserable it felt to play against it. The second reason is that back then so many things were broken at once, things like these didn't even stand out that much. Again, I could unironically name over 100 examples of things being so broken it would be unheard of to exist nowadays. They were all basically live at the same exact time. It was a different game design philosophy. Nothing is broken if everything is broken. That is basically how it was back then. League nowadays is just so much more polished that these broken mechanics are completely unthinkable in 2026. They got rightly removed for a balanced game experience. But even knowing all of this, why does the hype feel so real? I think the biggest reason for this nostalgia is something money can't buy. And Riot can't program. The third reason why it was so good? It was 2013. This was a completely different time in everybody's life. Most of us were in school back then, or maybe in college. There were less troubles than today. We remember coming back home as fast as possible on a rainy day to boot up the game and play until we went to bed. We miss staying up late, being as quiet as possible not to wake our parents, just to get a few late night games in. We miss hitting gold for the first time. We miss the experience of playing the game back then. We miss the time we had when we were playing the game back then. We do not actually miss the game itself. And this leads us to the elephant in the room. The single biggest reason why League Classic will not be the magical experience we are hoping for. Even if Riot perfectly recreates Season 3, they cannot recreate the 2013 player base. Because let's face it, the average League player in 2026 is a sweat. We are all tryhards now. Think about it. Back in Season 3, pulling off a basic insect kick on Lee Sin made you look like an absolute god.
Kicks in. That is so hard to execute. Even though Europe tried to come with and made really...
Today, if your silver 4 jungler doesn't hit the exact same combo he gets spam pinged and reported. The overall baseline of skill, wave management and mechanics has evolved so much that a modern gold player would probably hit diamond in the early seasons. But mechanical skill isn't even the main issue. The real game killer is information. Back in the day, if you wanted to learn about the meta, you either watched pro games, watched a streamer, or played the game to see for yourself. We were clueless. Experimenting was the whole point. We had forums discussing champion builds, the most famous one being MobaFire, the single biggest website for learning a new champion, and somehow also the single worst website to actually learn. I remember clearly, whenever I looked for a jungle build, I was always recommended the double jungle guide, what it is and what you need to know. And since I had no idea what it meant, I just assumed that was how you played jungle. Safe to say, I started in bronze for a good reason. But even Riot themselves had no clue. Back then, the standard recommended items they suggested you build in the shop were borderline reportable. Today we have Lolalytics. We have u.gg and many other websites. We track win rates down to the second decimal. If League Classic drops, especially if they add a ranked mode, people aren't going to experiment like back in the day. The modern League community will solve the game within a week. Every broken interaction, every OP champion will be figured out and optimized. Tier lists will be uploaded within days and relentlessly abused. Imagine playing against that 99% banrate Kassadin we talked about earlier. But this time, the guy playing him actually has good wave management, knows how to play for power spikes, and knows the absolute best builds possible. Players will optimize the fun out of the game, because that's just what we do now. So you really have to ask yourself, do you actually have the energy to play against 2026 tryhards who are abusing 2013 game design? And if you think I'm exaggerating, look at what happened in 2021, when Blizzard did exactly what Riot is doing right now. They released Hearthstone Classic, the pure, untouched 2014 release version of the game. It was something the players were longing for. The game was only 7 years old at the time, but due to the nature of card games, power creep was a real thing. The game was completely different since it had released. So I, as a Hearthstone player, was really excited when the game mode finally came out. It was everything I had asked for. I could finally play the old decks of vanilla Hearthstone, and I actually had the collection to play them. And I did, and it was absolutely amazing. For about exactly 1 week. Afterwards, it got stale. The game was much more rigid than I had remembered. Part of the fun back then was the progression, the unlocking. Without that, the magic faded quickly. It also really didn't help that the meta was already solved. There was no experimenting. Even at the lowest ranks, everybody was just playing the absolute top tier meta decks that we already knew. Me, and basically the whole community, were a bit bummed out. But that's alright, I thought. They're going to release the next expansion for it soon to make it fun again, right? We can actually play different metas. Right? Nope. It never came. Hearthstone Classic remained just that. The base release version. No patches, no new expansions, nothing. And so, it became a dead game mode. And by dead, I mean dead. There were basically no humans left playing it. It was just swarmed by bot accounts, trying to level up quickly. A game mode that players begged for, completely forgotten. Until Blizzard recently just deleted it entirely. But I believe Riot knows this. I do think they care enough about this game to actually make this mode as good as possible. But what would that actually look like? That's a surprisingly difficult question to answer. Do we go the WoW Classic route, where we start at Season 1, Patch 1, exactly as it was, and then, after a set amount of time, we move to the next key patch, progressing through the history of the game together? Or do we go the old school RuneScape route, where we start in the base version, but Riot creates an alternate timeline, making balance changes based on modern data and modern player needs? Or maybe they do something completely different, a rotating era system. We play the peak of Season 3 for 6 weeks, and then it ends. After a bit of downtime, it comes back, but this time we play the Season 1 release for 6 weeks. It's definitely not an easy task to implement, and honestly, I do not envy the Riot devs who have to figure this out. They have an incredibly big task at their hands. And this is exactly why the fate of League Classic doesn't actually depend on Riot Games. Yes, Riot has a gigantic task ahead of them. They have to figure out the patches, the balancing, and the timeline. But at the end of the day, Riot only builds the playground. We are the ones who have to play in it. Hearthstone Classic didn't die because Blizzard wrote bad code. It died because the community couldn't stop themselves from optimizing the fun out of it. And that is the brutal, unavoidable truth about League Classic. Riot can bring back the old map. They can bring back Heart of Gold. They can bring back everything. But they cannot delete Lolalytics. They cannot unteach us 17 years of wave management and macro gameplay. This game mode isn't just a fun nostalgia trip. For a massive portion of the veteran player base, this is the final test. There are thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of older players who only stick around out of habit, hoping that League Classic will finally make them love the game again. They want that 2013 feeling back. But what happens when they log in and realize that the magic isn't there? What happens when after a week the meta is solved and they play against the same champions and builds for weeks on end? If League Classic fails, it most likely won't be because Riot made a bad game mode. It will fail because we, the players, ruined it ourselves. And when that happens, that final emotional tie to the game will be sewered. That will be the moment a lot of veterans finally close the client, uninstall and never look back. Because League Classic failing will force us to swallow the hardest pill of all. The game didn't necessarily get worse. The magic did not disappear. You just grew up. You changed. Let's hope we can prove ourselves wrong. Thanks for watching.